As you know, President Trump tangles with many reporters. His supporters say he's an equal opportunity offender, but that's not quite true. His exchanges with women and people of color take on a different tone. He is prone to questioning the intelligence of women and African Americans. We saw that all week long. One recent exchange, this was at Wednesday's post-midterms press conference between the president and reporter Yamiche Alcindor, illustrates just how nasty the interactions have been.
On the campaign trail, you called yourself a nationalist. Some people saw that as emboldening white nationalists. Now people are also saying
I don't know why you'd
that
say
the
that. That's such a racist question.
There are some people that say that now the Republican Party is seen as supporting white nationalists because of your rhetoric. What do you make of that?
I don't believe it. That's such a racist question.
It was a question about racism. It wasn't a racist question. It was a question about racists. Let's talk about this with one of the other reporters that the president targeted. That's April Ryan. She's a CNN analyst, of course, and the White House correspondent and Washington bureau chief for American Urban Radio Networks. April, I don't want to play the sound, but the president called you a very nasty loser this week. Do you think he was just having a bad day, or do you think there's a racial component to this?
It's personal. The president made a personal attack. And, you know, there's not a coincidence that 3 African-American women within a span of 2 or 3 days were singled out and targeted so harshly. You know, the president has gone after other reporters. That's true. And he's gone after others. But when it comes to black women, it's very personal. I mean, I think back about how he went after Congresswoman Frederica Wilson when Sergeant LaDavid Johnson died along with the other soldiers, valiant soldiers in Niger. I think about how he continues to go after Congresswoman Maxine Waters, saying low IQ and other things. And then the words that he used about me to place the target on Yamiche's head by saying her question was racist. No, it wasn't. It was a legitimate question. And then to say that Abby Phillip asked a stupid question, trying to essentially say she was stupid, which she's not. It's very personal. He goes in on personal attacks. And yes, I do believe black women. I will say it's racial. I will say that.
Let me take a look at that exchange with Abby. We wanted to view it from a different angle so you can see both Abby and the president. Here's how it went down.
Do you expect Matt Whitaker to be involved in the Russia probe? Do you want him to...
It's up to him.
Do you want him to rein in Robert Mueller?
What a stupid question that is. What a stupid question. But I watch you a lot. You ask a lot of stupid questions.
You know, just a very uncomfortable situation for any reporter when you watch that happen.
And finger in the face.
I think the context here is that newsroom diversity is a problem across the U.S. and even in the White House press corps. There are not enough female correspondents, and there's especially not enough female African-American or Hispanic correspondents. As a result, when the president really seems to focus his ire on people like you, it really stands out, and I think there's no more denying that this is a problem he has.
Yeah, it's a problem. And I'm going to go back to a tweet that I received yesterday from former White House Press Secretary Mike McCurry. He was there. He was my first press secretary I've ever covered under Bill Clinton in 1997. And he said, you know, I tangled with April Ryan quite a bit. But one thing I did learn from her questions is more about issues of race and poverty. And those questions, when we ask questions, it's real, it's legitimate, it's about people. It's not about us. And this president has made it about us instead of about the American people, the issues that are on the table for all America. And, you know, it's interesting remembering back what the president said about me Friday. Well, I'm going to say this. I'm a winner because, you know, at that first press conference the president had in the East Room of the White House, he thought I was so much of a winner and had enough gravitas to be able to pull together a meeting between him and the Congressional Black Caucus when his staff couldn't.
He asked you to do it.
Yeah, he sure did, and it's on tape, and it wasn't a doctored tape. And I was so much of a winner that this administration pulled me in for a meeting with first son-in-law Jared Kushner on issues of prison reform and put me on a phone call with him because of my winning, okay? Because I have that kind of gravitas and understand what's going on in the black community. So, and I could go on. And I wrote a book about this under fire. You know, I wrote a book about the reason why this administration comes after me. You know, I'm not perceived to be their base, and they want to use me as an example. But this has gotten personal for no reason, and whatever the disdain they have about me or the issues I ask, it's on them. It's not. This is about America.
Are you concerned they may try to suspend your press pass next? Because when Trump raised the prospect of suspending other credentials, he brought you up out of the blue with no good reason at all.
Out of the blue. Out of the blue with no reason at all. I was on the president's mind and I wasn't even there. It's interesting. They may try. Why would they try to suspend my press pass? I understand that they have been angry with me, more so since I asked the question in January about, Mr. President, are you a racist? And there was a reason for that because of the alleged S-hole comments that he was making. And then after Charlottesville and everything else, it didn't just come out of the air. So they've been angry with me about that since then. And then at this last press conference, the day after the midterm election, there were issues and videos and comments and reports about voter irregularities in various states. And I threw the question out in that pregnant pause moment when he finished answering a question and going to another reporter. I said, Mr. President, what about voter suppression? And he responded, and therefore I stood up out of respect thinking he was going to do an interchange with me. And then he tells me, he sees who it is, and tells me to sit down vehemently with the venom of disdain, with disdain towards me. And I sat down, but then he started saying, oh, you know, yeah, I got voter suppression for you, those CNN polls. And then I stood back up and said, no, Mr. President, I'm talking, and this was all off mic, and my reporter colleagues heard me, I'm talking about voter suppression in Florida, voter suppression in Georgia, North Dakota, and Texas, and other states. And he proceeded, sit down, sit down. And that was a legitimate question. And thankfully, another reporter from NPR, Aisha Roscoe, another African-American, followed up, and he was very flip with her about voter suppression, as he's claiming voter fraud is happening. And there are more cases of voter suppression than voter fraud. Again, so many real issues. And if they want to suspend my pass over that, it's not logical. It's not logical.
No, it is not.
It's not.
April, thank you so much.
It's beyond. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Thank you so much. I'm up against a break, but I want to show everybody something from 2 years ago that I think is really important in this conversation. We're talking about the president revoking one reporter's press pass and threatening others. Well, in June of 2016, the now president promised me he would not do that. This was on a phone call, a phone interview I had with the president. Back then, he was not allowing certain reporters from certain news outlets to go to his rallies. He wouldn't let the Washington Post in. He wouldn't let BuzzFeed in and other outlets. So I got on the phone with the now president and I said, are you going to do this if you're elected? Are you going to revoke credentials? I wanted to listen to the audio tape of what he told me then.
All I want to do is be treated fairly, Brian.
If you are elected, will you try to revoke the press credentials of media outlets at the White House?
No, it's a different thing. In my case, I'm a person running for office. I rent these large arenas. I rent them, and so I have an option. When I'm representing the United States, I wouldn't do that. But I would let people know if somebody's untruthful.
Okay, so I just want you to keep that in mind going forward. He was very clear 2 years ago. He would not strip credentials from White House reporters. Another broken promise from the president. All right, quick break here. More unreliable sources, including that group of activists threatening Tucker Carlson right outside his home.